Squeezing more FPS out of your graphics card is easy thanks to our free software, MSI AFTERBURNER, the most used overclocking software. Enabling graphics card tuning, monitoring, and other tweaks, you can fine-tune your GPU for the best gaming experience. And be careful to only download Afterburner from MSI.com or Guru3D.com, as there are phishing download sites with modified installers that steal your data. So when you search, make sure you're on our site or Guru3D. I'm Rick, your host today, and as a longtime Afterburner user myself, I learned some new tricks, including configuring the OSD overlay without a game or benchmark running. Today we'll go over overclocking, using hardware monitor and on-screen display, custom fan profiles, video capture, and cover some frequently asked questions. And please take a moment to subscribe to MSI Gaming for the latest news and tutorials. Make sure you have the latest graphics card drivers installed and install the latest MSI Afterburner along with Riva Tuner's statistics server. If you have installation issues or Afterburner is already installed, an easy workaround is to disable Start with Windows, hit OK to save that, and restart your PC, then install. You'll also need to download 3D Mark, Unigine Heaven or FurMark for benchmarking and stability testing. After installation, in Settings, check Start with Windows to let Afterburner use your settings and GPU fan profile automatically when you turn on your PC. Also, we'll need to check Unlock Voltage Control and Unlock Voltage Monitoring, and depending on your GPU manufacturer, you may need to adjust the drop-down menu. Hit Apply so you start seeing voltage readings in the main window. Don't forget to click the Apply at Windows Startup button top right of the main window to use your new settings every time you turn on your PC. Note the profile lock icon must be open, otherwise this button will be grayed out. Importantly, global hotkeys you set won't work with the settings menu open. Let's begin. A disclaimer before we start, GPUs have built-in protection and will reduce the clock frequency or voltage as it gets to the limit. Overclocking here is safe, but you do so at your own risk. Save any work and close everything else before starting. This takes 30 minutes, sometimes less, and works on almost any GPU, including non-MSI cards. In Afterburner's info window, you can see your version number, and scrolling down, your GPUs listed here also. After you've checked Unlock Voltage Control and Unlock Voltage Monitoring, run a benchmark before you start and write down your frame rate, voltage, and temps for comparison. The latest version of Afterburner includes OC Scanner for one-click overclocking, so we'll look at that, how to manual overclock, and troubleshooting. And yes, this should work for laptops, but use small increments and watch your CPU and GPU temperatures. First thing we'll do is move the power and temp limit sliders and core voltage all the way to the right, and you must click Apply. Next, we'll click on Curve Editor. You can press Ctrl F to bring this up as well, and we'll cover this area in depth in the undervolting section. Top right, we'll click on OC Scanner. You can also press the magnifying glass icon with OC text in the main window, and for the interface, we're using the default Mystic skin, but almost all Afterburner skins have an OC button. We'll hit Scan, and it takes around 30 minutes to complete. You'll notice in the main window of Afterburner that the core clock now says curve, and the memory clock has been adjusted. But note this may just get a playing it safe default of 200 MHz, and you'll tweak this after you get the curve you want. Since it takes half an hour to get a custom curve, save your new curve to a couple of profiles by clicking the floppy icon, and then click on the profile numbers to complete saving. Click the check mark to apply the overclock. With the main window selected, the keys 1 through 5 load a saved profile, and Ctrl plus 1 through 5 will delete that profile, so be careful. If you're testing and want to reset your GPU to all defaults, you'd click the circle back arrow or hit Ctrl D. It automatically applies, and this still keeps the saved profiles. You'll need to check the stability of the overclock with benchmarking software, and you can use Unigine Heaven or FurMark. Run for 10 minutes looking for any glitches, flickering, blackouts, or crashes. If so, you can edit the curve, save, and try again. When you're ready, fire up your favorite game to test. While OC Scanner is recommended, maybe you want to try manual overclocking. First, we'll try adjusting the processor, then the memory. Drag the power and temp and core voltage to max and click Apply. Then try increasing the core clock speed by 20 to 30 MHz per step, hit the Apply button, and test. Don't forget to save successful tries to a profile. If you search your GPU chip plus OC settings, you'll find targets to help you. Just remember the silicon lottery means your results may vary. Once that's stable, adjust the memory clock speed, try 50 to 100 MHz per step. Run a benchmark, and if you see glitches, reduce the memory clock by 10 MHz until it's stable. Save, run a 10-minute benchmark, and if it's stable, try gaming. For me, I'd find the max overclock and scale it back slightly for better long-term stability. Some notes. Your power supply will draw more to handle the overclock. You need to use separate cables from your power supply to each connector on your GPU, so you can't connect with the first one and also use the pigtail. This is because transient spikes can trigger the overprotection of your PSU, and maybe not right away, but over time, turn off your PC when it spikes. You'll need to adjust your fan curve as your GPU is using more power, producing more heat, and we'll cover that later. For troubleshooting, there's a rare chance you may blue screen and you need to restart your computer. Fortunately, you've already saved that previous successful attempt. If your screen goes black and nothing appears for a few minutes, you can hold your PC's power button over 4 seconds to turn it off. Or turn the PSU switch off and wait 10 seconds and turn on the power supply, then press your PC's power button. As a last resort, you can clear CMOS. Switch off your power supply or remove the power cable and use something conductive like a screwdriver or tweezers to connect the CMOS jumper pins for over 10 seconds. High-end boards may have a rear motherboard I/O clear CMOS button to do this. Then plug in or turn on your power supply and turn on your PC again. How about undervolting your GPU? This could result in lower power consumption, less heat, less fan noise, and better performance. By reducing power a little, the GPU may have a little extra headroom for performance, which is heat limited. Turning down the power results in less heat, so the chip may give a few more FPS while using less power. Undervolting here is safe, but again, you do so at your own risk. You can use undervolting in combination with OC Scanner too, so run OC Scanner first and save it to a few profiles before you start. And you'll generally see actual results with mid to high-end GPUs, though monitoring and tweaking an aggressive undervolt could be tedious in the long run. And thanks to Tech Illiterate and Techia City, whose undervolting videos really shaped this section. You'll need to have Afterburner's graphs running to see the real-time GPU temp and voltage graphs. Run your favorite game's benchmark or play for a bit to know the frame rate to compare to later. Next, we'll run 3D Mark, Heaven, or FurMark for around 5 minutes and write down the frame rate average, voltage, and temperature readings, and we'll keep it running behind MSI Afterburner as we test to see the effect our changes have while the benchmark is running in real time. You can also use a utility like Hardware Info to cross-check live GPU temps and voltages. Clicking the Curve Editor button or pressing Ctrl F will open the Voltage Curve Editor, and you can drag a corner to resize the window larger, making it easier to grab points and make fine adjustments. You can also search what undervolting settings others have used and see if you can get similar results. With our curve defined, we'll pull the curve down by pressing Alt plus dragging by the amount we found. Next, we'll adjust the bottom end up with Ctrl plus dragging close to the default curve line, so at lower power states it's not too undervolted. Next, we'll select the millivolt point we found, usually around 950 millivolts, and pull it up. Hold Shift and drag slightly left of the point in empty space above or below, all the way to the right. Hit Shift plus Enter 2 times and it'll flatten the line. We'll hit Apply and save this to a profile. You can test stability now if you want, looking for frame stutters, artifacts, or a change in 1% lows. Our next step is to adjust the memory clock speed by 50 to 100 MHz per step. We'll adjust the power limit slider. You can try 70% through 90% in 5% increments. Hit Apply and save to a profile. You're now undervolted. Make sure the Apply at Windows Startup button is on, so these settings will automatically load every time you start your PC. Run a 10-minute benchmark, and if it's stable, try gaming. For me, I'd find the max setting and scale it back slightly for better long-term stability. The dotted lines show the current position of the GPU on the curve. Okay, how do you know it's stable? If it's not, you might see artifacts, but frame stutters are more likely, as well as lower or more 1% lows. The benchmark or game may crash, or your PC may crash, so try around 50 or 30 millivolt steps. Some cards like the 4090 may be locked in firmware to a value lower than the graph, so it may take a bit of lowering to see any results. Do a 10-minute test in a benchmark, and passing that, run your favorite game and check there too. In games with ray tracing, DLSS, or FSR, those options may consume more power, so keep that in mind. Some tips. Double-clicking on the graph will clear the selected area. If the graph doesn't go flat with Shift plus Enter twice, you may need to select further past the dot or click a different point and click back on the point you're adjusting. If you click on a dot and hit Enter, you can type in a voltage value. Up and down arrows increase, decrease the selected point by 1. Control plus up or down arrows move it by 10. Holding Alt and dragging vertically will move the entire adjusted line. Shift and dragging uses the default or save profile curve. Holding Control and dragging will gradually adjust the top or bottom of the curve depending on which side of the graph you're on. Pressing L in the editor will lock GPU voltage and frequency to that dot after you hit apply, so your card will stay at those values, and it won't dynamically adjust or save power. Note that it doesn't lock the position of the dot on the graph. May be useful for testing, but remember to unlock and apply when finished. You've saved a few profiles, so you won't need to wait 30 minutes for OC Scanner again, if you do need to hit Ctrl D to reset the card to its defaults. So why aren't all GPUs undervolted by default? Manufacturers pick stable settings that run all GPUs at a certain tier, as even identically made GPUs can have slightly different voltage tolerances. With undervolting, you could see less FPS, greater and more 1% lows, or screen tearing and instability, though you can reset to fix any changes you've made. The on-screen display can show all the GPU and CPU stats you need on top of your gameplay, so let's see how to set that up. First, we need to select what items we want to see, then we can show those items in the OSD. Click on Settings or Ctrl S, then on the Monitoring tab. We'll choose a bunch of stats to display: GPU usage, core clock, GPU temperature, power, memory usage, and memory clock. If you see GPU 1 and GPU 2, that's listing your integrated graphics on your CPU also, and you can see which one is your GPU by closing this window and click the Info button or Ctrl I and scroll down. It will list what GPU 1 and GPU 2 are. Intel CPUs, except those with F at the end, all have integrated graphics. For AMD, Ryzen 7000 series do, but older AMD CPUs only with a G at the end have this. Back in Settings Monitoring, near the bottom you'll find frame rate, frame time, frame rate average, and 1% low. Note that you can drag and reposition these items. Dragging a bit outside the top or bottom of the whole box will get the list to scroll. You can select a group and drag them all up, and you may get single items to jump to the top or bottom with the Home or End keys with a little trial and effort. Now that we have everything we want together, click on the top item and mouse wheel or drag the sidebar down. Holding Shift, click the bottom item to select them all. We'll click on the check mark on the left side to enable monitoring these stats. Then we'll click the box to show in on-screen display so they show in the OSD, and click Apply to save your changes. At the top, we'll click on the On-Screen Display tab. We need some way to turn it on and off, so we'll click in the Toggle On-Screen Display box and press Scroll Lock. Click Apply. Note global hotkeys like this one won't work with the settings menu open, so you'd have to click OK to close it, have a game running, then hit Scroll Lock to turn on the OSD. You'll notice our OSD is missing the all-important frame rate average and 1% low, and the benchmark mode must be recording in order to see them. In Settings, we'll click the Benchmark tab at the top and assign the F9 key and Shift F9 to begin and end recording, and click Apply, then the OK button. Global hotkeys will not work until you close the settings menu. With a game or benchmark running, hit F9 and the frame rate average and 1% low appear at the end of the D3D11 line. Note if you want to refresh and clear previous data, hit F9 to start a new measurement. Shift F9 will end the benchmark, pausing the last values, and Shift F9 again will turn off these stats. We'll hit F9 to get them running again. Back on the Settings On-Screen Display tab, click the More button middle right, bringing up the Riva Tuner Statistics Server or RTSS window. You can also get there by right-clicking Riva Tuner in the system tray and clicking Show. We can adjust the OSD size with the zoom slider, and you can see the number 60 in the box below matching your adjustment. You can change the display corner and drag the position around. If it's hard to see with text underneath, click Display Fill On, and the right color dot changes the fill color and opacity. In RTSS settings, check to see if benchmark mode is on by clicking Setup. A new window comes up, and scrolling down to the bottom, Enable benchmark mode should be checked. The keys we assigned, F9 and Shift F9, will toggle this on or off. Clicking on the Plugins tab, you'll see two entries, and here's the very useful Overlay Editor. Double-click to open, et voila! The OSD shows without a game or benchmark running, but it blocks adjusting zoom and other settings in the main RTSS window. However, clicking on Afterburner and Settings Monitoring, you can configure everything the way you want. Let's get a frame rate graph. Select Frame Rate, and Show in OSD has a drop-down menu that says Text. We'll change this to Text Graph. The graph speed scrolls according to your FPS and faster with higher FPS values. If you're noticing stuttering or 1% lows, capping or limiting your frame rate in the game may lessen these and get you a more consistent experience. You can graph other stats too. Here I'll select GPU usage and core clock together and choose Text Graph so I can monitor them. We can alter the graph's size by clicking on the three dots and scrolling to the bottom, double-click to change values and make them bigger or smaller. To change text color groups, on the Show in OSD line, click on the three dots button next to text. Color 0 controls GPU entries, Color 1 does CPU entries, and System Color 0 handles GPU and CPU stats. For frame rate stats, the entries are Color 2, and Color 4 controls the stats. We can rename items by checking Override Group Name and typing in the box. We'll type in our GPU and hit Apply. GPU usage gets its own line now. If we want, say, core clock on the same line, we'll select it, override group name, and type in the exact same text and click Apply. Some games like Forza Horizon 4 may not show the OSD. In this case, you can try Windows Game Bar to get some stats. With your game running and selected, press Win+G and click the Widget menu, then Performance. You'll need to pin the window for it to stay up. In Options, you can adjust transparency, and you can click on an entry in the left column to show the graph you want. On to hardware monitoring, and clicking the heartbeat monitor icon or Ctrl+M will show a separate hardware monitor window with graphs. The graphs include everything we've checked to monitor in the previous section for the on-screen display. If you want to add entries, click the check mark on the left side. We'll add fan speed, and so we can see everything, we'll change graph columns to 3 and click Apply. The graphs go left to right, and fan speed appears at the bottom. It won't be in the OSD because we didn't check the Show in On-Screen Display box. If you want it to display at the top, we can drag this all the way up and click Apply so we can see it as the top graph item. If you right-click on the monitor, you can pause, clear history, and more, including disabling Always on Top if you'd like this window to go behind others. You can attach graphs to each other like fan speed and CPU usage, and they both have similar 0 to 100 ranges. If you right-click on a graph and click Properties, it will bring up the Settings Monitoring tab with the entry selected. Enabling graphs while you're playing helps you watch temps and your fan speed, but can block a part of your game. With an MSI Optics MAG275 CQRXF 1440p display for our main monitor, we have a second monitor for Afterburner, though a regular 1080p 60Hz display will do just fine. While a faster than 60Hz 1080p panel may have DisplayPort, most 1080p displays only have HDMI. So connect your faster gaming monitor with DisplayPort and use your second screen with DisplayPort or HDMI. Using DisplayPort to connect your gaming monitor always delivers the max FPS, getting around HDMI hardware limitations that some monitors have. Also note that stuttering can rarely occur in Windows with monitors running at different refresh rates. Let's see how we can set a custom fan profile for our graphics card. We'll run a benchmark like Unigine Heaven or Furmark for a few minutes and keep it running in the background while you adjust fan speeds. Write down your frame rates and GPU temperature. When your GPU is running at max load, making your fans slower and quieter will start to overheat your card, and you'll lose FPS as the card thermal throttles. In Settings, click the Fan tab at the top and click Enable User-Defined Software Automatic Fan Control. If you have a non-MSI card and don't see any changes, you can try using Firmware Control Mode. And if your fans start-stop all the time, the Override 0 fan speed with hardware curve may help. Keep in mind your case fans need to move enough air through your case to feed cool air to your graphics card. On the graph, you'll see points on a line. For faster or more aggressive cooling, you can select them and move them to the left, and for quieter fans, you can move them to the right. In testing, you'll see your GPU plateau as it reaches a heat-load cooling equilibrium, so higher fan speeds means it should take longer to climb up. You can add a point by clicking on the line, and pressing delete will get rid of it. At idle, many GPUs have a 0 fan speed mode where they stop spinning. Clicking Override 0 fan speed with hardware curve may allow you to turn off your fans and still use a custom fan curve. When gaming, your case fans should be speeding up to move more air through and keep your GPU cool. And if your PC is noisy at idle, you can adjust the CPU cooler and case fan curves in BIOS or MSI Center. Seeing the current fan speed is easy enough as it shows the percent in the main Afterburner window, and in the hardware monitor graphs if you selected the entry to be monitored. Some FAQs. There's one custom fan profile, so the fan profile doesn't change when selecting different saved profiles. How about setting a custom fan profile for a laptop GPU? Unfortunately not, as it's set by the manufacturer in BIOS. In the Settings Video Capture tab, you can set your capture or pre-record hotkeys, unlocking more settings. Again, global hotkeys don't work with the settings window open. Video format has options for compression in the drop-down menu. If you choose External plugin, the small button with 3 dots to the right will become active. Note you'll need to use Matroska as the container format. Clicking the 3 dots button, the encoder drop-down has NVIDIA, Intel, or AMD. Note there's no restriction on choice, but the hardware needs to be in your system. If you're trying Intel QuickSync on an AMD Ryzen-based PC, that won't work. Configure will bring up the encoder settings, which are slightly different for each, though they all have target usage, choosing between speed and quality, and target bitrate. Back to the Video Capture tab, there's quality, frame size, rate, and limiter options. Higher values look better, but have larger file sizes, and the save location can be customized, along with compatibility options below. For audio capture, you can define different sources along with a push-to-talk hotkey, and you can downmix to stereo, and after you select a second audio source, mixing multiple audio tracks becomes available. This allows you to combine audio sources into your recordings. Finally, in the Screen Capture tab up at the top, there's hotkeys to snap in-game screen grabs too. MSI AFTERBURNER has a lot of customization for capturing available, and you may also want to check out NVIDIA Share and AMD Radeon Relive for game capture. They're highly optimized softwares for each brand of GPU with very little impact on FPS while gaming. So that's our guide to all the features in MSI AFTERBURNER, the most used overclocking and versatile GPU tweaking solution around. If you're looking at new hardware or graphics card, please visit the MSI website to see our latest products with their features and specs. Hopefully this guide helped you. Please give us a like and subscribe to MSI Gaming for the latest news. Thanks for joining us today and have fun gaming. See you next time.